So everyone, please help me welcome to the stage this morning, Mr. Chris Moody.
That was fantastic. Holy smoke. This place is cool. I didn't see it. I haven't seen this until just now. I came in through the back door. This is a beautiful venue.
You know, I'm trying to figure out how you got put on for my city and our mayor didn't. So I think it's the fact that you went to Auburn. I think this is a great time to tell the folks War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Yeah. There we go, War Damn Eagle. But, you know, we're about unity, and so the other folks can say, but, damn it, stop stealing my thunder. We're in Birmingham, and we all know the importance that UAB plays on this community, and so whether you are Auburn, whether you are Bama, we can all say, go Blazers. Good stuff.
You know what's awesome is we had dinner last night with some folks, and at some point, everybody, we were talking about a future thing when everybody pulled out their calendars to talk about what date we're going to do this first thing on. And literally, people didn't look at their calendars, they looked at the football schedule.
Right.
And they were like, well, we could do it, that's the Auburn-Tennessee game, we could do it around that. So I'm so glad I'm in a state that has their priorities straight.
I know, right? And you know, we couldn't do it around Classic as well. I hope y'all know about the Classic. You know, this is going to be some diversity training right here. For my white brothers and sisters, the Classic, known longer as the Magic City Classic, is the HBCU, is the HBCU matchup between Alabama A&M and Alabama State. And it is a big family reunion, outdoor tailgate. There are more folks outside the stadium than inside the stadium. So I encourage you all to go and check it out last weekend in October. So, well, I guess we can get right into it. I'll just start off by saying that I've grown quite fond of Chris in very short order. We had the pleasure of meeting during the Rise of the Rest tour put on by J.D. Vance and Steve Case. This was back in May. I believe. And so it was a big deal for Birmingham to be named as part of the Rise of the Rest tour. And this really stems out of the idea that the activity and innovation and successes, they can happen outside of Silicon Valley or your traditional venture capital hubs, right? Outside of New York, outside of Boston. But they happen in middle America. They happen all over the place. And like Mayor Woodfin said, right, the South's got something to say. And so much of that activity is taking place in the Southeast. And so Birmingham was one of 5 cities to be named, along with, I believe, Dallas, Memphis, Chattanooga, and Louisville, if I'm not mistaken. And the theme throughout the day that was consistent was how impressed people were with Birmingham.
Blown away.
And so we had a great conversation about what's going on in this city and where we can take it further. And so maybe we can just start talking about why Birmingham. Obviously, we love this place, and you have connections to the state, but what, 20 years ago, I believe?
Yeah, the last time I was in Birmingham prior to the Rise of the Rest was, I think, like 1988. I came for the Iron Bowl. It's the last Iron Bowl that was played in Birmingham.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly. So I had not been here in a long time, and I was, I think, you know, Steve had called me before the event and said, hey, we're doing this tour, the South Tour, and, you know, I know you're from the state of Alabama, and you know, because you were part of the process, there's a big forward team. Like, the Rise of the Rest thing is not a small production. There's a lot of work. It's not just, you know, some white guys showing up on a bus. There's a lot of...
They're black guys, too.
Yeah, there were black guys on the bus.
They weren't at the back. So.
Yeah.
Too soon?
So it takes, not to get down that rabbit hole. It takes it takes a lot of effort, and so the team really gets to know the cities well in advance of actually showing up. And Steve said, man, we think, you know, every one of these tours there's like a shining city that we think really has, you know, the most potential, and we think that's Birmingham. Now, that didn't come out publicly, and we came, and I was talking to him at the end of the day, and we were both just like, kind of our mouths were, first of all, we were tired, because it's a long day, and there was a lot to see, but our mouths were just hanging open. We were, for me, what really impressed me was the energy of the city. And there are great startup communities being built all across this country and really all around the world. But when you go to you go to certain places and there's this energy and this excitement, and part of it, and the mayor was talking about this, there's this part of it about, hey, I'm excited about what I'm doing, but I'm excited about what everybody else is doing. So there's this collective energy of like, we're all in this together. That's very exciting. I live in Boulder, Colorado. I spend my life on an airplane, but my mail goes to Boulder, and Boulder kind of went through this. What I think Birmingham is going through now, Boulder started about 10 years ago, and there was a bunch of things that factored into that. My venture firm started there, which helped a lot because there was now a venture firm that right in the heart of Boulder that did tech investing at a meaningful level. Techstars was formed that first year, and there was already momentum building, and there was already a lot of entrepreneurship. But one of the things that really stood out as somebody who'd spent a big part of their life in Silicon Valley was this notion that we were building the community together, that it wasn't enough for me to be successful. I had to help you be successful, and if I helped you be successful, you'd help me be successful. And we built up the community together, and that's very much what I felt when I was here. So yeah, I mean, look, I think I think the magic is back in the Magic City.
I'm glad to hear that. And to echo that point, I think we do have that, and I believe we have a culture that facilitates that entrepreneurial innovation. We have a lot of organizations, Daxco, one of our sponsors, a lot of people who have gone through that company have gone on to start additional companies. Tony Somerville with Fleetio being a great example. So, yeah, give a round of applause to Daxco and Fleetio. They really are great folks, but I mean, we have examples of that all across. So getting back to what it takes to really move Birmingham to that next level and to create that kind of that culture, what is something that we can do on an individual level to make sure Birmingham is fostering this kind of collaboration and we're creating those ingredients that we need?
Yeah, I'd say just to pile on what I was just saying, I think having this give first mentality when you're at this stage matters a lot. So, I'll give you an example from my background. When I was the CEO of a company in Boulder, and Boulder was this, now I think it's broadly recognized as, one of the top 5 startup communities in the country. But, at the time it was not. It was just this, place of weird people. And so when I was CEO, though, you have a lot of people, I mean, kind of what's happened in Boulder is you had a lot of people that had success on the East Coast or the West Coast that wanted a lifestyle change. And so they moved to Boulder, but they didn't want to roll over and die. They wanted to keep doing stuff. And so, that continues today. And so when I was the CEO of a company in Boulder, what I would get all the time is get a call, hey, I'm, a senior engineer at Google, I'm in the Bay Area. My family and I are thinking about moving out to Boulder. Could I meet with you and talk about what you're doing at GNIP? And they would meet with me, and the first thing I would do is just talk about Boulder for 20 minutes until they basically told me to shut up. Right? I didn't talk about GNIP. I didn't talk about my company. I said, here's what's going on in the town. And then we'd talk about what they want to do, and I could talk about GNIP. But a lot of times, it's a little bit of a needle in the haystack of finding somebody that we're exactly what they're looking for, and they're exactly what we're looking for. So the number of times I said, you know what? I don't think you're going to be happy here. I'm not sure we have a role, but let me walk you across the street to this company and introduce you to this CEO, because they sound much more in line with what you're really thinking about long term. That kind of give first mentality, helping each other out, sharing ideas, showing up for events like this. Events like this are really important to bring people together. You've got to know each other. As an example, I think if you look at Boston has every reason to be Silicon Valley, not second or third place to Silicon Valley, right? You've got institutions like MIT there. You got a lot of really smart people. It's a college town. You got Harvard and Boston College and all, you know, BU. You got all these universities there. It has all the ingredients to be an amazing startup community. But weirdly, for whatever reason, and I lived in Boston for a number of years, when you go there, people don't talk to each other. And so you can literally be like, hey, you know, I was just meeting with this company across the street, you know, are you talking to those guys? Because they're, you know, it might be interesting. They're like, no, we don't know them. Well, you know, they're about to go public. No, we've never heard of them. Like, so I think it's a big missed opportunity. And the flip side is these communities that are really thriving are working at it together. So, you know, we use this slogan, you know, give first. And I just don't think there's a more important ingredient to the mix, which is help people without expecting anything in return. And when you do that, this community will flourish.
Absolutely. So you had mentioned your company, GNIP. Talk a little bit about it. We've touched on like the culture of the community, and I think Birmingham, you know, we have that in spades, that giving back spirit, that servant leadership. Talk a little bit about creating a culture and the culture that you all install in GNIP and the importance of that in the growth of a company.
Yeah, you know, one of the most important things I think you can do when you first start a company, people talk a lot about company culture, and I don't like that term for a lot of different reasons, including it tends to be exclusive and not inclusive. The term I like to use is company values, and you know, the vibe of your company is going to change. You know, in the early days, it's going to be frenetic and chaotic and a lot of fun, and there'll be more, you know, there'll be a lot of sleepless nights, and you'll probably go out drinking a lot, and you know, like, it'll be a lot of energy, and that vibe is going to change based on a whole bunch of factors, some that you can control, a bunch of them that you can't control. You know, changes in the economy. Apple launches a competing product with what you built. Like, there's a lot of things that can make you not feel good or your company not feel good or feel great that you can't control. And I call that vibe. You can't control it. It'll do what it does. Most successful companies have a positive vibe over time. Values are the things that you define about how you are going to treat each other at the company, how you're going to treat people in the community, how you're going to treat your customers, probably one of the most important, how you're going to treat partners, and those should never change. And so you want to define those up front, and then you want to operationalize them. And what I mean by operationalize them is not put a poster on the wall that says, here's our values. That will do zero. It's make decisions based upon those values. When you will face a million decisions running a company. As you're facing these decisions, turn to each other and talk about your values and say, well, let's make sure we're not just making something that seems like it's a good business decision or a easy business decision. Let's make sure we're making decisions that are based upon our values. When we hire people, let's make sure we're hiring people that are good skills match, but are also a good values match. And so I think that's really, really important. A lot of people, you know, they'll focus on things that I, again, find as culture. Like, you know, oh, we have a work hard, play hard culture.
Right.
Like, that's just a thing. That's like our culture is we have a foosball table. That's not a thing, right? Because, you know, 5 years from now, when some of those people have started a family and they're still amazingly skilled people, but they're like, hey, I don't want to play hard anymore. I want to go home to my family. Are you going to say, well, you know what? That's not our culture. Sorry, right? Like, it's a temporary thing. You know, one of our values, and you need to keep the number small. You know, we had 4 values. One of our values was we hire great people. We trust them to do great things. And that sounds really simple. And, you know, who here wants to work for a company that trusts people? You know, probably, well, 3 people apparently. You know, it sounds good, but the reality is actually most people don't want to work for a company that trusts them, because most people would actually rather be in a safe position where somebody's going to tell them what to do. They're going to be really clear about what needs to be done, and they feel like, oh, you know, I've got a great leader. They tell me exactly what needs to get done. And, you know, we were a little bit different. We're like, look, you know, our biggest cost is people. If we're going to be successful, it's because of the people in the room, and we want those people in the room to use their brains. And we want them to take use their brain and make decisions and take risk, and they'll get some of them wrong, and we'll learn from that, and we'll get better. And so everything we did in the company, and sometimes people would look at me like I was crazy around, like when I'd say, we're not going to do it that way. Oh, why don't we just have a rule. The engineers are frustrated because they're having too many meetings. Why don't we have a rule that says, you can only meet with the engineers 2 days a week? And I was like, well, that's saying the company knows the best way for people to meet and communicate, not the individuals. We got to trust people that they know how to communicate and can manage their own time and own schedule. And it seems silly, but like I remember that particular one, I went around and around for like 3 hours with our VP and engineering, why I thought that was such a horrible idea. But it was down to this like core value thing of like, we're going to trust people. So I don't know what your values should be, but you need to define them early. And again, it's not just how you treat each other, it's how you treat people externally, your partners, and you got to live them.
What was that process like to develop the values? Was it just throwing up sticky notes? Was it working from 10-year ultimate vision, we knocked it out of the park, and then bringing it back? Just describe that for us.
Yeah, no, it's a really important process that we went through. So we defined it, we were about 10 people when we defined it. And the company history, I wasn't one of the co-founders of the company. Company started, had a couple of high-profile co-founders, raised a bunch of money, kind of burned through that money, and right when the money was running out, was like, hey, maybe there's a business here, and that's about the time I joined. So the company had a fair amount of history, had a couple years of history, and it was left with company went through a downsizing after it ran out of money, and was left with a core group of people that really believed in the mission. And so one of the first things I did, and we did what consultants will charge you several $100s an hour for, an affinity analysis, which is just a sticky notes thing, where I said, like, hey, just write down on every sticky note, like, what you think makes this place special. And people, wrote it up, and we ended up with an entire wall of sticky notes, and then we started putting stuff together that sounded the same. Like somebody would say, no BS, and somebody else would say, we call it like it is. Right, and and through that we came up with these categories. We were able to narrow it down to 5 or 6, and then from there, I said, look, what are the 4 that are just always going to be true? And then we start, the team kind of wordsmithed them in the beginning, and at the end, I kind of put the polishing touches on it. And what I loved about it is, one of the first things we did was we incorporated it into our interviewing process. Because the best way you can make sure you're living your values is that every person you bring on, is a values match. And the way we did that was kind of unique. We took every one of our values and we said, how can we describe this value in a way that sounds as horrible as possible? Because we wanted it to be a filter. And the experiment we ran, and it turned out to be true, was no matter how bad we tried to make it sound, the right people thought it sounded great. And that hire great people and trust them to do great things, that on the surface sounds great, but you can make that sound super terrible, right? Hey, you're going to get here, and honestly, your manager may not have a ton of time for you. You're going to have to figure out a lot of stuff on your own, right? And we described this process that sounded like, hey, we're running really fast, and you may be, out on an island making some decisions and figuring things out on your own. And the right people would be like, yeah, yep, sure, of course, yeah, that sounds good. And the wrong people would be like, no, say a little bit more about, right? And so you got to get it built in early, and so I would start there.
So
are these questions too long, by the way?
No, these
well, the questions are long. Are the answers long?
They're still with you, I think.
Okay,
but
cool.
no, so a lot of this sounds like timing is important. So.
Yeah.
Kind of following that theme, at what point do you sell to Twitter?
Yeah, you sell when somebody makes you an offer that you like. No, I joke, but it's very true. Like, you should spend 0 time trying to sell your company until you have to. I mean, there are moments in time when you realize you have to sell. Right, we're running out of money. We don't have options anymore. But if that's not the case, in any other case, you should focus on building a great business. Great businesses get bought by great companies, and it's super obvious when you're working with a company that's focused on building a great business. So you need to have the expectation that you will never sell the company. You certainly need to have a horizon of like, look, this, the average, we're a venture capital firm. Our expectation is we will start to see returns 10 years after we make the investment. Sometimes it happens faster. Sometimes it happens really fast. But there's a reason that funds are 10-year funds, and that's because it typically takes 10 years, 7 to 10 years to start to return the fund. These overnight successes, that can't be your expectation. So build a great business, and then you'll get valid offers. In our case, we were Twitter's most successful partner at the time. We worked really closely. Our business was really built on top of Twitter. We had built this massive business for them through our partnership, and they had helped us build a very successful business. So, it was the right deal to be done, and we'd really built this thing together. There was a case to be made that, for example, Facebook might be willing to pay much more for our business than Twitter, because they, in theory, could be very envious of what Twitter built and they didn't have it, so they buy us and now they have it and Twitter doesn't. But for us, it was absolutely like, look, we built this thing together. The decision to come together was really easy once the numbers worked.
Good deal. I think we're going to do questions later, but I just wanted to encourage you all to start thinking about some now, if you have any. Just a silly question. I don't know why it popped in my head. I'm a silly individual, but should Twitter have an edit button?
Yeah, well, as the guy that ran the data business, hell no, because the way Twitter works, and the power of Twitter is it's a syndicated product, right? You see tweets everywhere, not just on Twitter, right? You see tweets, they're on people. You see people's Twitter handles on their business cards. Watch CNN now. It's not really even commentary. It's just a series of, here's what Trump said on this tweet, right? It's just a Twitter stream. And you read the newspaper now, it's just all tweets. And so the content is distributed immediately. And in many cases, in our platform was like, we will deliver the tweet you're looking for, in less than a second from the time it's published. So it's this big syndication model. So if I syndicate a tweet to you and you're CNN, and then 30 seconds later you change it, right, what happened?
I tweet War Eagle, and then some dude behind changes it to Roll Tide.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't believe I just said that out loud.
Yeah, no, I mean, and so it's hard to do with a syndicated product. And people think, like there are just not competent engineers at Twitter, or Twitter hasn't been smart enough to think, hey, we should have an edit button. It's actually just anything really when you have 330 million active, passionate users, change is hard. But that one, there's some really valid reasons why. By the way, this has probably never been spoken for in public, so don't tweet about it. But it turns out it's a super, super tricky issue. So I would say no. Funny side note, when I left Twitter and I joined my partners at Foundry, we're big Slack users. And I'm a terrible speller and I'm a fast typist, but not a good typist. So I was always like sending these Slack messages, and then I immediately follow up with, oh, I meant blah blah blah, or obviously I meant to say type this word and not this word. And then after 3 months, one of my partners was like, there's an edit button, and it just blew my mind. I was like, oh, you can edit? Holy cow.
So we have a lot of entrepreneurs and startup founders out here. Is there anything in particular that you would like to just share with them and impress upon them in terms of looking for VC?
Yeah, I thought you were going to ask a different question, so I'm going to answer that one first, and then I'll... My overall piece of advice, if you were early in building your company, is the best companies that we experience time and time again have two things in common. One is, maybe three, but certainly two. One is they are insanely focused on their customer. They are very customer-centric companies. And the other thing is they're really focused. And people use the word focus all the time. Oh, you guys need to focus, whatever. And focus is not about, hey, we're going to really pay attention to this thing. The better way to think about focus is we're going to say no to almost everything. And it's amazing to me, like I immediately fall in love with entrepreneurs when we sit down and they're telling me about their business and I'm starting to get excited and I'm like, oh, and you could do this and we could do this and we could do this. And they're like, yeah, we're not gonna do that. Because their DNA is to say, we can only do so many things and only a few things are ultimately gonna matter. And so we're gonna be really focused on those things. And so it's very, in early days of startups, and many of you probably have experienced this, like who could use this product? Anybody could use this product. I hate that answer, right? Because first of all, anybody is very expensive to sell to. If you want to market or sell to anybody, good luck. What's your message? The more specific you can be, the less expensive it is, right? If I could say to Dion, hey, I want to talk to you about a product that we designed for Tech Birmingham. Like that's a very direct product, right? So the best companies are like, no, we know exactly who we're building for, and we're really focused on the core value proposition that we're going to offer. And if you think about most companies that have been really successful, it's not like they've done an endless number of great things. They do one or two things really well, and so that's, I would say those two. And the third one I'd put which is if you're thinking about starting a company, the best companies start their companies for the right reasons and not the wrong reasons. And the number one wrong reason people start their company is because they want to be their own boss. That's idiotic. First of all, if you thought you didn't control your schedule when you worked for somebody else, wait till you own your own business. You will have no life. So yeah, you will control your schedule and all of it will be spent on your business. You want to make money, that's like saying, I want to play the lottery as my financial strategy. 9 out of 10 startups fail. You're probably, you're almost certainly going to go backwards. You may go forward someday, but it's not, don't do it because you think you'll make money. And similarly, don't start it because you think it's a good business idea. I've seen so many people say, like, we found this need, and there's this just big need, and if we do it, man, look at the numbers are great. You're going to live and breathe this thing every single day of your life. You don't have to be passionate about it. You have to be obsessed with it. You have to be obsessed that I was put on this planet to solve this problem because it is going to be your life every waking moment. So those are the wrong reasons to start a company. The right one is because you're just obsessed about the problem or the opportunity, and you want to be a part of the solution. So that was the question I thought you were going to ask. Number one tip for raising money is don't think about I'm pitching VCs. Think about it as I'm pitching Chris Moody. Every pitch should be about the person that you're talking to and what they're interested in and how it relates to you. My inbox, probably 2/3 of my inbox is filled with people pitching ideas that I just delete immediately because it is very clear they spent zero time considering why we would be good investors, so I'm going to spend zero time thinking why we'd be good investors. If they didn't do that work, why should I do the work for them? It's so easy to get my attention. Hey, Chris, I was watching your commencement, like stroke my ego. I was watching your commencement address on YouTube, and oh, I know you're really into this. I know you the most important was like, I know you invested in these companies. I know you invest in these themes. I know, I heard you speak on this topic. And that, that just there's this theory that you get out of communications what you put into communications. Sending an email is something that any person, any bot now can do. It takes zero effort. So you shouldn't expect big returns from it. If I get on a plane and I fly out and I show up at your door and I meet with you, please don't show up at my door and just meet with me. But then like that's a real effort. I should have a higher expectation about return. So think about effort not in terms of how many emails you send out, but the quality of introductions that you're looking for, and just do the work. Like it's so easy to find a path to me. Me and every other VC, we like to talk about ourselves. We're super public. You can find out our network. You know who we know. The chance that you know somebody, you all know Dion, he knows me. Like it's so easy to get an introduction through somebody that I already know and trust and respect their opinion. Like use your network, but understand the other person's network to get to them.
I just set up a Gmail filter to automatically forward emails. Any questions? Just show a hand so we can know where to direct the microphone. We have one down there. Okay, all right, good deal. We're gonna hit a question and answer session. But you said something I want to, just kind of made me think about that focus advice. Can you be focused on the wrong thing? And the reason I asked that is because you had mentioned that initially you all were bleeding through cash. Mm-hmm. Was it because you all were focused on the wrong thing? Was it more operational? Did you have to pivot? Just
yeah, no. Great example. We were not a customer. Is again prior to me, but we lacked good leadership. No, the company was started with this vision, but was not customer driven. Was not thinking about what do people actually want. It was more of like, hey, we as, and it was technical co-founders, we as technical founders think there needs to be this product, and they had this vision, but it wasn't customer driven. And the turning point for us was, we had a bunch of people sign up and use the service, but we found that there was this small group of companies that were absolutely pounding our system. And the turning point for us was a guy that was young at the time. He's not as young now. We had a young product manager who had, short side story, he graduated from Clemson and joined the very first Techstars class. Back then, Techstars was much easier to get into. He had an idea, and he just graduated from college, and he got accepted in the very first Techstars class. And he started a business, and that business ultimately failed. And his big takeaway from that experience was, I didn't do customer development. I really didn't. I had this big vision. And by the way, I mentored him that first class, and his first question I asked him is, who are you selling this product to? And he said, anybody could use this product. He learned from that. His business failed. He wrote a postmortem. They actually put it in the New York Times. He's like, the only time we ever made the New York Times was when we wrote a postmortem about why our business failed. He became our head of product, and he said, I'm never going to do that again. And so when he joined our company, which was shortly before I joined, he said, I'm going to figure out who we're building this for. And he pinpointed this very small minority group of users that were really passionate about our product. They seemed to also be more than willing to pay real money to use our product. And it was about 5% of our users. And we just decided we're going to build the whole service for that 5%. For a bunch of different reasons, including the fact that they had an affinity for our product. Long story short, we ended up capturing 95% of the market by focusing on 5% of the customers.
So how would you describe those customers? Who were they?
They were enterprise customers. So it was companies like Salesforce and Oracle and IBM that were not, when the founders created the company, they didn't envision that companies like that would be interested in these in our service, and so we didn't treat anybody differently. So we had Salesforce using our tool, and we had 2 people in a garage using our tool, and like, yeah, they're all the same. And so this product manager was like, why is Salesforce using our tool? And really started to dig in at what they were doing. And it was early, like Salesforce and IBM and Oracle didn't have products yet. They were starting to think about building products. What happened was they ended up building those products. Those products sat directly on top of our product. And we had this realization, I'll never forget the moment, I even get goosebumps thinking about it right now. We said, you know what? If our product fails, IBM's business in this area fails. Salesforce's business in this area fails. We could probably charge a lot more for this service. And we...
I thought it was a noble thing that like, nah.
No, what it really, I joke about the money, although they would pay a lot for the service. But what was so clear to us is that their needs were very, very different. They cared about reliability and scalability and sustainability. We had a competitor that was beating us over the head at the time because we had started off offering annual agreements, and they offered pay-as-you-go. You could sign up anytime you use the service and go away. And we were like, man, maybe we should do that too. They were really bad-mouthing us as being these unscrupulous company, because we made you sign a year contract. And then we started talking to IBM and Salesforce, and they're like, why can't we get a 5-year contract? Why can't we get a 10-year contract? Because they wanted to the last thing they want to do is become dependent on this little company in Boulder, and then we're like, hey, now that you're dependent on us, we're quadrupling our prices. They're like, we want to lock in on service levels and terms, and it changed everything. And it turned out that those were the real users and benefactors of our service, so that ended up being the defining moment.
Good deal. I guess we can go to the question now. Wait, is that Dennis Leonard? Question and answer session is over, so.
D.
Go right ahead, sir.
Dion, first of all, thank you for the air conditioning. It feels so good.
Least we could do.
Thank you. Chris, in Colorado, you had great top-down leadership from government, Bill Owens, Bill Ritter, and now Governor Hickenlooper. How important has that been to see the ecosystem and continue it in your state? And is there a top-down effect in government that really has an impact you think that we could replicate or even elect people here that would do the same?
Yeah, I think it has an enormous impact. We had great support at the state level. We have had, please don't tweet this out, we have had kind of shitty support at the city level. Boulder's just a place that's very confused about what it wants to be. It's still very much a town of hippies, and so they're almost dead now. And and so are we recording this? I'm gonna get so much. It's also a small town where I know everybody.
Yeah, I don't know if the live stream is going out. You might be good for now.
Yeah, so the hippies want to keep it small, and there's a little bit of business is bad, attitude, growth is bad, but it's unavoidable, right? I started a company that got bought by Twitter. Now Twitter's largest growing office in the world is in Boulder, Colorado. Google bought a small company in Twitter, and now 8 years later they just built a 300,000 square foot campus in Boulder, so change is going to happen. They're sticking their head in the sand. So the city hasn't been great. The state has been supportive. I think it's massively important, and I'm super. It's one of the things that blew me away day one when I came here, and talking to Mayor Woodfin, like it's very clear that the city here is investing. Shipped had an interesting announcement yesterday, and I know that the city was really a big part of making sure that, right, it's super easy. A company like Ship gets bought, like, hey, why don't, let's move everything to Minneapolis. We got that pressure when we sold to Twitter. Hey, maybe we move the business to San Francisco. And I think it is, with support of local government, it gets a lot easier. But it's an ingredient. It's not the only ingredient.
Good deal. Any other questions? Show of, we have one in the middle. You're not supposed to give them the microphone. It's like the Oprah thing, right? You're supposed to keep it. No, I'm just
How you doing today?
Hey, good. How are you?
All right, cool. I got a question. How big does a company need to be potentially to justify funding?
How big does a company need to be to justify funding? Look, you can get funding very early.
Potentially.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, you can get funding really early. I think maybe another way to frame the question is when is the right time to go raise money for the first time? Because obviously the bigger you are, bigger you are in terms of revenue, the easier it's going to be. You can raise money with no revenue, and really with an idea, it's just going to be harder to get done. So you can do it anytime. The right time to do it, I would say, is, first of all, you should get as absolute far as you can without raising money, because once you take money from people like me, there's an expectation that there's going to be a return on that money, which to a certain degree, we have to be convinced that you have already figured this out and you have a plan, and really now it's about executing the plan that you have a lot of confidence in that it's going to work. And that can take a long time to get to that point, and so you're much better off building and testing and ideally saying, look, we've got a product and we've got some level of market fit to know that if we put more cash into this business, then it's going to result in in more dollars out than more dollars in, and that can take time. And raising before that point is is dangerous because you might end up really disappointing your investors prematurely. So my suggestion to people is always like, get as far as you can with as much confidence as you can. But once you start to have confidence of like, we've got something and we know it's working, and we know the obstacle now is in part capital to go faster, that's the right time to raise money. Now, that being said, you should start relationship building right away, right? Many of the companies that we invest in, we've known those companies for 3, 4, 5 years. They keep us updated. People always like, hey, can I keep you, they meet with me, hey, would you invest? Hey, we're not going to invest now. We send out a monthly report to our mentors and our investors. Can I include you on the monthly report? Yeah, keep me updated. I'm happy to stay posted. So you can build relationships early, but when you actually pull the trigger for fundraising, you want to be as far along as that you've got something.
Good stuff. Do we have any other questions? Show of hands. Oh.
Oh yeah.
We need somebody to throw a microphone.
Just yell. I'll hear you.
Go ahead and yell.
I lied. I can't hear you at all.
I
think I heard the very first part, which
yeah.
is why did you decide to leave Twitter? Was it to become a VC? That was the question. I have been building businesses for 27 years, and really, Bill Smith and I had drinks last night, and he was asking me, like, don't you miss building business? And look, I love building businesses, but I feel like I did everything that I wanted to do. And when I really evaluated do I want to retire? What do I want to do next? I said, well, how do I want to, I knew the answer to retiring was no. I was like, what do I like to do besides spend time with my family and ride my bike and go snowboarding? Like, what do I like spending my time doing? And the answer was, I love spending time with startups, helping them, try and work through all the heartache and the excitement. I would do that for free for the rest of my life. And turns out there's a profession where you can actually do that. So that's why I decided to do it. And I'd been at Twitter for 3 years and had an amazing experience. Working at Twitter it's crazy. It's a crazy place. The teaser I always tell people is like, if you want to know how crazy it is, I'm not going to tell the story now, but like I once found myself, I kid you not, 4 a.m. on a yacht in the south of France with Kim Kardashian, will.i.am, and Dr. Phil, and me.
But you're not going to tell us
but
that
I'm not going to tell the story. Because it gets less interesting from there. But that's the kind of place Twitter is. And at the same time, I was knee deep in stuff going on with intelligence community and stuff. So it was a crazy, fun place. But I felt like I had done what I could do there. And I was really excited about the next step.
Good stuff. One more question. Up at the top.
Have you ever invested in any medical device companies? If so, why? If not, why not?
One thing to know about us.
Did y'all hear that?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So the question was, have you ever invested in medical devices? Why or why not? So the way we do investing is, people always say, like, what's the hot technology you're investing in? What do you think about, AI, or what do you think about AR, or whatever? And that's not the way we work. The way we work is we do thematic investing. And the reason is because we can't be experts in everything. And so we look at what we think is going to happen over the next several decades in terms of trends, and we build themes around those, what we believe are going to be the major arc trends in there, and make sure that we're building expertise in those areas. So for example, one of our areas of investing that we do is what we call human-computer interaction. 10 years ago, we said, gosh, there's just no way that the main way people are going to interact with computers over the next several decades are going to be keyboards and mice. Like, that doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot of interesting things. And so we did a lot of thematic investing around different types of human-computer interaction. A good example of that was, we were the largest investor in Fitbit. Because we said, boy, it seems like the way humans interact with computers around, elements of health monitoring, as an example, are going to be really important. And, just thinking back through the portfolio, Fitbit's it's obviously not a medical device, but is health related. But we wouldn't rule out the category, and we would be open to it if we liked everything else about it. We like the problem set, we like the entrepreneurs. So we don't rule out any particular industry. The only thing, we have a few hard lines, like we only invest in the U.S., and that's not because we don't think there's opportunities outside of the U.S. It's just, none of us wants to spend all of our time on planes going internationally, so we're selfish that way. But yeah, no, I think we're totally open to it.
Thank you for that, Forrest. Chris, the person, one book that you would recommend?
I like, I'm forgetting the name of it, I like Phil Knight's book. He talked about building Nike shoe dog. Yeah, that was great. That was just a recent read.
Seinfeld or Friends?
Oh, Seinfeld.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Strawberry grape jelly.
I hate to say I'm not a jelly person.
You're what?
I know.
Just when you think you know a person.
I know. I have a thing. Sugar makes me feel bad. So as much as I like the concept, it just makes me feel terrible. And it's not like self-loathing terrible. I have that too, but it's more like it's more of just an actual chemical something or another. So
I got you. Favorite show on Netflix right now? Or Hulu, for that matter.
Yeah. Right now, I'm actually doing Amazon Prime Sneaky Pete. I'm working my way through that, which is
one fan.
It's not the best. I recently went back and did the whole Wired series, which is just like, Wired was amazing. So, yeah, one.
It's like one for
yeah, exactly.
Good deal.
I went back recently and watched the Auburn-Alabama game.
Yes, that's always. We're just gonna show like the kick six on this thing, right? Good deal. Well, Chris, seriously, thank you. It's been a pleasure just chatting with you over these few months. Obviously, you're really cool, man, down to earth and approachable. But I love your passion for trying to make sure we're building something that benefits everybody in Birmingham. And seriously, thank you for making time coming out here. Definitely appreciate it.
I will be back.
Awesome. Round of applause, everybody, Chris Moody.
Thank you.